folks, this is Norm the teacher, and time to make another video, time to teach you something else. Today's video is going to be on a vehicle again, except this is going to be my 1998 Chevy truck, 1500 series, 4.3 liter engine, 6-cylinder. I'm in the process of changing out the ignition switch, and I had trouble getting the steering column shroud off. And so I'm going to do a video just on removing the shroud, and then I'll do a later video on removing the cylinder lock, what the key goes into, and also the ignition switch. But for right now, it's just the shroud. And here is the shroud that covers the steering column. And this is obviously the front, and this is where the gear shift lever goes through. Or no, no, this is what this is the faces the steering wheel. This would be actually the front, and this is where the turn signal goes through, the emergency flasher lights, and then on the other side the gear shift over here, and then of course the ignition key here. Okay, a couple things about this thing. First of all, before I get into the shroud itself, there's two fasteners that fasten this shroud on. There's one, it's called a T25, I got two cameras here, so I got to move things around. A T25 fastener, and an E-designated socket female fastener. The E series, or the E designator, for the socket, this is a socket, the female part, it's female socket that goes into the male part of a screw. You'll need a T or an E5, and this fastens the upper half of the shroud. Upper half of the shroud. Okay, and then you're going to need a T25 driver, which would look like this, to take off the lower half of the shroud. Now, T designations for this type of a driver are what designate the size. In this case, T25. When you're dealing with sockets, it's an E designator, like an E5, and this is an E5 socket, which you will need to take off the two fasteners that fasten the shroud on, the upper half of the shroud. Okay, I give you that information because okay, now this is what a screw looks like that a T designator would take off. Notice how it's recessed. But the male here that I have written here, the male, that refers to the what loosens it. If you have trouble remembering what E and T are for, think of T as testosterone for a male and E as estrogen for a female. And it is a female. The socket is something that's recessed, and the male goes into it. And so that's a mnemonic you can use to remember it. Okay, now the shroud itself. Here it is, out of the vehicle. And the reason I waited till it was out of the vehicle is it makes it easier to show some things. First of all, I want to show how the back end of it is attached. Hopefully this will be in good lighting. Let's see what that lighting looks like. That's terrible lighting. Okay. Get it out here. Better yet, I'm going to take this outside. I still have daylight, and you can never go wrong with daylight. Okay. I think that'll show up better. The sun isn't out, but okay. Now, Notice the back end here. This is the side that faces the dash, and this is the side that faces the steering wheel. Notice how there's a couple of hooks. Get the other camera here to get it. Camera here to get it. Okay, now the top part of the shroud goes into those hooks like this. And then it comes together. So just be aware of that's what that looks like. When it's in the vehicle, it's hard to tell what it actually looks like. Okay, now, here's a point that I have to point out. It's very important. You have to remove the lower part of the shroud before you can remove the upper part. You can remove the upper part first if you break stuff. And I did break some stuff. But to avoid breaking some stuff, you have to remove the lower part first, because the lower part hides two screws that hold the upper part on. Okay, here's the bolt holes that, and one of my cameras, the lighting is great on this, and the other camera, the phone, is not. Let's see if I can get this facing. Dang. I'll just hold the thing. Here, let's do it like this. Okay, this hole does nothing. I don't know what it's there for. But this hole and this hole leads up to two screws that fasten this on. Then, when you take it off, when you take the lower part off, that will expose two screws right here, or two screw holes, and right here, that hold the upper part on, here and here. And notice I've broken them, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what it looked like inside when I did it. So I had to break them. And but to avoid breaking them, take the lower half off first, and then you can get to the other ones on the upper. And then all you have to do is, once you've gotten those screws undone, oh, here's another thing. Where the ignition key goes through, you may have to actually break this here to get it off of the ignition key, because this goes around the ignition key, and I have no idea how one would take that lock out. You can't take the lock out unless the upper shroud is off. So I think I know what they did at the factory. They put this shroud on, and then they put the lock in. And then once the lock's in, you have to break this to take it back out. I have a feeling that's what they did. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So remove the top first, or the bottom first, and then the top. So, and it's two. And I'll go back to my my little diagram here of or display of the fasteners. So again, to get the lower half off, you're going to need a T25 to remove two of these screws. And I'm going to show you in the truck where those are. And then you're going to need an E5 to remove the upper half of the shroud. And you're going to need a socket, and you're going to need an extension. It'll make it easier if you have about a 6 or 7 inch extension to do that. Okay, now to go out to the truck and show you where these bolts are. No, a little hike here. There's my truck. Okay. Whew. Okay. Okay. Right under here. Here's one of them. This is one of the ones that holds the upper half on. Notice it goes from here all the way up to here. but you can't get to this right here until you have removed the lower part of the shroud. And you can see up here on the top, here, and here is where I broke it, where I broke the upper part off. Because I couldn't, oh, and another thing, the screw that's over here is different than the screw that holds this one. They're both T, or E5 screws, but the end is different. When you undo this one, on the left side, don't expect the screw to come out, because notice how there's a nut holding it there? The screw doesn't come out. All you do is unthread it to loosen the threads from the upper part of the shroud. The screw won't come out because that nut is holding it on there. And then there's a little column of plastic right here that holds it on. Now this screw over here does come out. And it looks different, but they're both E5. Yeah, E5, an E5 socket will remove both of those. But don't expect this one to drop out. Just keep turning it a number of times to make sure it's loose. And then you should be able to remove that upper part of the shroud. And you'll probably have to break that seal that holds this, where the key is. Right here. Break that seal where the key is. Alright, so I just wanted to give you some information here on the shroud, because just the shroud itself is a source of frustration. I spent 2 hours trying to figure out the right way to do it, and the manual that I have, all they do is they just tell you, remove the shroud around the steering column. Okay, could you give me a little bit more detail? Like where are the screws, how many screws, what size of sockets do I need? No, they just say, remove the shroud. Yeah, okay, thanks, that's a lot of help. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this video, is here me, a rank amateur, doing a better job of explaining something than a manual does from some multi-million-dollar corporation. So anyway, enough of my ranting there. So that's enough for this video, and hopefully that'll help you. My next video is going to be, there's going to be several videos on my 91 Mazda and also my 98 truck. But I will eventually be doing a video on removal of the key tumbler system from the ignition, and also the ignition switch itself, along with the whole wiring harness. But that's coming up later. I had to just take care of the shroud for right now. So long, YouTubers, and I'll see you in the next video.